Oh man. Well, thanks for coming on. As I said just before we hit record, we were introduced by Chris Knight, who is, I'm not sure of his role, but he works at Precision Fuel and Hydration, and him and I have been in contact quite a lot because Andy, who's the man behind Precision Fuel and Hydration, has been on the show and answered all my questions about hydration and fueling, and he's had some really popular episodes on here. But he was saying to me that you guys have, oh no, I think it was you telling me. So you guys are there, one of their big distributors, or that's the main brand or the one brand that you're working with in terms of fueling and hydration at Up There Athletics?
Yeah, yeah, correct. We actually it hasn't been that long. We got them on board sort of within the last couple of months, and we sort of did our research into what was the sort of the number one product out there. We do like to stock, the sort of number one product in each range, whether that be, Morton for the fueling and then Precision for the hydration and stuff like that. And since coming on board, it's been fantastic. It's customers seem to be loving it, and the staff are into it. So no complaints.
Yeah, they're just a cool brand in the sense that I found them, like, just to go back to what you were saying before, for what to become a pretty big company now, super approachable. Like the amount of athletes that they must be working with, and the amount of people in just in various sports, they've sort of got that, have their finger on the pulse of what's going on, and even just in terms of their general advice around fueling and carb loading and things like that, I found so helpful because I'm getting ready for the Melbourne Marathon this year, and that's just an area that I had no idea about. I was always a track and field athlete, so there was never much time in a 1500 to need to stop for
Yeah,
fueling
you're
or
probably not
or
running it
carb
right if
loading
you're
any.
stopping for a gel.
That's right. So it's been so helpful just to jump on their website and try and navigate my way through that. I've got what, like 20 weeks to try and get it moderately sorted out. So we've got plenty of times. But yeah, they've been really helpful, man. But dude, there's quite a few things I was really keen to have a chat to you about because, as I mentioned, from a distance, I'd seen Up There Athletics, I'd seen the quality of your Instagram, the website, and just thought it looked really good. But in terms of your role there, man, like paint the picture of sort of how you got involved there. Because what's your background? A little more design, and from what I could tell, design and sort of that creative space was where you sit pretty nicely.
Yeah, yeah, correct. So I studied graphic design at uni, and sort of, did my time there, and got out. And when I was as I was finishing up uni, I actually worked for the guys that own the two stores, just as part-time retail to see me through uni. And then left there after a few years of full-time work and helping out with the design work to head off and do my own thing for a couple of years. And then it was sort of during that lull that I started getting into my running. And then the guys had sort of identified the grey area in the market, in the running market, and got in touch and asked me if I wanted to come on board and sort of help set up their athletics and run the show on that side of things. So that's sort of where the, I guess, the idea for the shop came about. And then we're very fortunate that we had the other store, Up There store, which had been around for 13 or so years now. To have the relationships with the brands and that sort of stuff, it sort of made the process a hell of a lot easier than just going in and cold emailing or cold calling Nike and hoping that they pick up. So that definitely made things a little bit easier. And it's been, I'd say, we're probably 18 months that the physical store's been open now. We launched the online store a little bit before that, just due to stock was piling up and we had to start moving some of it. So yeah, and it's been really good. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. We've been incredibly fortunate with the way the community has picked up on things and joined in our events and activations and shopped at the store. So incredibly thankful to the Melbourne running community and internationally who have supported us so far. And we like to think we're sort of at the still fairly young and still at the start of our journey. So hopefully we can go strength to strength from here.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about the support that you've gotten from the Melbourne running community. It's a massive community, isn't it? It's one thing that I really missed. I officially finished sort of my competitive, or my really serious attempt at middle distance running in about 2013. And it wasn't until like a couple of years out of the sport that I realized just how many people there were that I kind of just fallen out of touch with. And I sort of looked back into the scene. I was like, I almost felt a little bit lost. It's unbelievable how many middle distance runners there are just running around in, well, what is it, like I was going to say a relatively small town by world standards, but I mean in Australia we're up there. But in terms of being outside of a running field and looking in, you assume it's pretty small, but once you get
Mm.
involved, it's kind of mind blowing just how many people you've got to work with. Do you guys are you sort of more targeted at the recreational runner, or are you trying to cover the breadth of just anyone who's trying to get a foot in the door and just trying to improve the running performance? That's sort of your target.
It's sort of, we've found it's grown and definitely changed over the year and the bit that we've been open. I think when we initially were pitching to brands and the idea was growing, it was very much, I think we, from a product standpoint, wanted to target that real top echelon of elite product, which is well and good product speaking, but it can have, a negative effect on your target consumer, because obviously that can be quite intimidating to some people. I mean, the way the market is now, it doesn't seem that way when you've got, everyone wearing Alpha Flies and all the rest of it every day of the week. But as time's sort of gone on and the store's grown, we've found that the guys in store can be servicing, anyone from sub elite guys who, should probably be on a contract somewhere, right down to entry level stuff. And I think that's probably one thing that differs from our other store on the fashion side of things. The running store is, you get a lot of people coming in genuinely looking for advice. And I think our sales strategy, for lack of a better word, is very much centered around staff knowledge, and that you can go in no matter what level of running you're at, and there's going to be common ground there with the guys in store. And 9 times out of 10 they're going to give you, the appropriate advice, and the customer will most likely follow that advice. So it really has grown to just be a full breadth of real entry level runners, people that have been running for 50 years, and just about everyone in between. And I think the little running boom, COVID running boom that we experienced in Melbourne and around the world, obviously helps that, because the groundswell of people that are picking up running, is massive. And it's pretty cool to see, and it's pretty cool to be an active part of that community, an active part of helping it grow and helping people get access to products that, 2 years ago might have been a pipe dream, or, might not have had the reach to be able to get products from internationally. And particularly some of the more expensive one is who wants to spend X amount of dollars on something before you try it on.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I reckon the knowledge factor of just being able to come into a place like that's so helpful. Like as I just mentioned, 2013 was when I finished running competitively, and I always had a foot in the door, and I kind of had an idea of what shoe was comfortable. And then I had a couple of years away where I really didn't look too much into the footwear or the gear component of the game. And then I came back at the start of this year and was like, all right, I'm going to start training for a marathon. And the first thing that was just mind blowing to me was just the changes in the shoe technology. Like obviously with Kipchoge's sub 2, the Vapor Flies, the Alpha Flies, there's just so much. Like the idea of a carbon plate in any of my shoes back in the day was just such a foreign concept. To be honest, I still don't
Yeah.
completely understand what's going on there. And I was having a
Yeah.
look at your YouTube channel before and just listening to, I can't remember his name, but one of the guys was walking through one of the pairs of Saucony, and how it's measurements and standards or weights and things like that were just in and around what the IAAF or the World Athletics
Mm.
standard required or accepted. And I thought, oh my gosh, like it's unbelievable just how much there is to know. I don't know if you know Matt Fox from Sweat Elite.
Yeah.
Do you know him? Yeah, I messaged him a while ago because I'd watched a couple of his videos, and I go, mate, just point me in the right direction. What
Yeah.
what
Tell me
shoes
what I need to
am I
buy and
running
where to
in?
buy it.
What do I? Yeah, exactly right. And so I sort of bring that up just to say it seems like, and maybe it could just be the fact that I've dipped my foot back into a world of information that I hadn't had a lot to do with for a long time. Is it a matter of, okay, like get your mind around what the key race shoes and training shoes are at the moment and get those in stock? Or how do you guys go about deciding what it is that you actually stock? Because obviously with a physical space, there's limited room, so you can't just have
Mm.
infinite options. How do you
Yeah.
decide what it is that you're bringing in and what it is that you're advising sort of athletes to run in?
it is a tricky one, and it's a um, you know, in an ideal world, you'd love to take every shoe and offer that, offer the biggest range to a customer. But like you said, you got limited shelf space, you got limited budget. Um, so the way we sort of like to keep things pretty clean and sort of play in each segment of the footwear industry, or in within a brand. So you might have your top end racing shoe, then you might have a fast training shoe, which is probably where there's probably the most amount of shoes these days in the current climate. Um, then that obviously filters down to a stability option and a guidance option, and then max cushion, and then we have some niche products, a brand called Ultra, which sort of specialize and have made their name in um, a wider platform and a zero drop. So it's good to have those sort of specialized products as well. But yeah, that's sort of the angle we come at it from, is not to give customers a within one brand an option in each of those categories, and not confuse them with five shoes in one category and two in another, and all in different colors. So, I mean, it can be tricky sometimes. It's definitely not an easy process, with that many shoes out there and that many competing shoes out there. It's obviously the way it goes, it ebbs and flows as to which brand is sort of taking top spot at that moment, and you want to provide the best from each brand. But yeah, it can definitely be tricky sometimes. And Hunter, who's our store manager, he's the guy on the YouTube and Instagram and stuff, and he teaches the guys in store, and they're incredibly knowledgeable with all those stats you were talking about. And I mean, it never ceases to amaze me. Sometimes you get customers in store who know 10 times more than what the guys serving them do, and you almost just let them do their thing, and they can teach them a thing or two.
Yeah, man. No, I can imagine. It's a really obsessive compulsive sport, and I know once people
Mm,
start dipping their feet in the water of what is the shoe knowledge, it can go very deep very quickly. It's something I
yeah,
think I've settled for. I haven't even tried them on yet, so I might have to come in and get your advice. But I think I've settled under the guidance of Matt Fox. I reckon I'm going to go for the Vaporflies in October, just because I mean it's so hard to look past the marketing of the sub two. You go, okay, surely
yeah,
this is the best shoe, even though I don't know if you guys have I might be getting the name wrong. I like the look of is it Metaspeed in Asics? It was like
yep,
a blue, a Metaspeed. They look
yeah,
nice as well. And the truth is, like, there seem to be so many world class runners. Not that I'm aiming to be world class in any sense of the word, but there seems to be so many world class athletes out there at the moment in all different brands. So it seems like the
mm,
playing field's leveled out a little bit, since Nike got the jump a few years ago.
yeah, definitely, definitely. There's other brands that are really catching up, and you sort of see that on when you see the recap of the men's and women's podiums at the major marathons. In a year or two ago, it would have been Nike Vaporflies for all six of them, and then these days it's you've got Adidas are really really pushing the envelope with their stuff, and you got Asics creeping in, and Saucony and a few others. So it's good to see that everyone is sort of catching up. No doubt Nike's probably got something up their sleeve which will push them ahead soon enough, as it usually is the case. But yeah, it's a really interesting market to be in at the moment, and it's really positive from a retailer's point of view to have all the brands vying for that top spot, and to have consumers and customers come in and sort of want to try on the top shoes from each brand, and they might go for something that they didn't necessarily come in store looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and it's cool to be able to offer them that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, man. I read before I got in here today that I'm not sure if I'm quoting this right, but you've got an appreciation for almost the underground scene in the. I'm not sure if it's just culture in general or specifically the running market. And I don't know how much you have to do with Riley Wolf, or whether you know Wolf, or Wolverine, I think they call him. He was on here early, and it's kind of cool because when I say early, like this is a couple of years ago now. We're going back in some time, but he's one guy I really enjoy following based on the fact that he seems to have the approach to what he does that was described on, I reckon it was your LinkedIn that I read. And it's interesting because I reckon 2000 was probably when I got involved in running. And distance running, it was never something that you told the girl at school you did because you were trying to impress her. It always
Yep.
had that reputation of, like do it, and you do it purely because you love it. Like the football boys were going to
Yep.
get the girls based on not only physique and skill level, but just the appeal to people watching. Whereas I just went out and ran 3Ks really fast. But what I like about, uh, uh, you know, the description that you offered was the fact that there's an approach to making a sport more appealing, and I'm
Mm.
fascinated by that marketing element of any sport really, because it's interesting that one particular thing can take off for a variety of reasons. But the approach that, or the vibe that I got, and the reason I was keen to talk to you, on behalf of Up There Athletics, was just because I feel like what you guys are delivering, it sort of breaks that stereotype of dorky runner, which
Yep.
might have been broken up. But I like the idea of something like that because I reckon one, especially for the younger guys out there, one of the hurdles that you got to try and navigate is just the vanity aspect of a sport like distance running. Is that
Yep.
something that I'm guessing this is a silly question, but like in terms of like what it is that you're trying to appear as to the market, is that what it is? Like the modern runner is the vibe I get.
Yeah, definitely. It's the modern runner, and it's the everyday runner, and like we've mentioned a few times, that groundswell of people that have started running, um, and integrated into their everyday lives, but they might come from any number of backgrounds, whether it be a creative background or any number of industries, and it is very much like that. Um, I mentioned it earlier, and identifying that grey area between our other store and sort of sneakers and fashion and that sort of thing, and like you said, the dorky running store, and sort of trying to reinvent what that can look like. And there's a number of brands around the world that are sort of on that quest as well. And so offering a space, physical and digital, where those brands can exist, and the the space and the experience does them justice as well. But it is very much, yeah, that kind of cool runner aesthetic, which can sound can sound pretty wanky at times, and again, you don't want to intimidate anyone or marginalize anyone, because it is an incredibly accessible sport, and the last thing um, we want to do is make someone feel like they can't come because they're not cool enough, or whatever the words may be. So um, yeah, for lack of a better word, I think the making running cool is definitely on our to do list.
Yeah, make him running cool again. That's good. It's interesting you say that there's not that many places out there. I mean, I spent my days growing up and going into Runner's World here in Melbourne. And if you ever just needed, I mean, I love this. So I say with nothing but love in my heart. If you ever want a dorky runner, that's where you go. They've got the they've got
Yeah,
the vintage products. And when I say vintage, I'm pretty sure the bloke who runs the store is the same one that opened it in 1847. Like it's going back a bit.
yeah,
He's a super helpful guy. But it's just yeah, it's such an interesting world to be a part of. And I mean, you say you got to be careful not to be wanky, mate. I'll take wanky any day of the week if I can look good while I'm out there doing a 10K run and convince someone that I'm real cool doing it. I'll
yeah,
absolutely take that.
yeah.
What
Look
was
good,
your
feel good.
background in the sport? Yeah, exactly right, man.
Yeah.
Exactly right. What was your background? Because the running world's an interesting place to end up in for whatever reason, but like
Mm.
particularly in a design kind of element. Did you have a background? Were you a competitive athlete growing up, or sort of how'd you navigate your way
No,
into a
I mean,
focus on athletics?
I played sport when we were young at school, footy, cricket, and all the rest of it. But I think high school athletics carnivals was probably the day that I try and get out of the most. So it was definitely not on my radar through primary school or high school. Um, and I probably started running a little bit, post school. Um, when you're having too many nights out and too many late night kebabs and all that sort of stuff, you got to do something to hold things at bay. And then yeah, just sort of, I was running here and there, and I always knew that my old man did a couple of marathons when he was um, sort of mid to late 20s. So I'd sort of had a little bit of exposure to that, and I think it was 2018. A good friend of ours, his some family friends of ours, that she passed away from a rare form of blood cancer, and her son was living in New York at the time, and he um, was looking to raise some money for the Multiple Myeloma Foundation, and he gave me a bell and said, we've got this opportunity to go and run New York Marathon for the foundation. They reserve a certain amount of spots for charity runners, and there's a few little stipulations you have to meet with a minimum amount of money raised and stuff like that. And I sort of thought, running a marathon was never on my bucket list. It was never something that occurred to me as something to do for fun. But I sort of thought, it's a pretty good opportunity to travel, and there probably won't be another opportunity to go and run New York Marathon at that time. So I signed up, and that was sort of where I got the bug from. Definitely didn't train properly for that. Managed to get through, unscathed. I still say that the naivety of the whole thing probably held me in good stead, because I didn't go out looking for any time or any splits or anything like that. It was just about getting to the finish line in one piece, and sort of had no idea where the course was going or where it was taking us. So it was a pretty amazing experience, especially for your first marathon to be a major.
Yeah, man. What was the atmosphere like? I've seen photos of the start line, and I've got a little taste just through YouTube, but never been there. It's
Mm.
definitely on my bucket list of one I would like to run eventually. Like, what was the experience like?
It's pretty incredible. It's the start line, and I mean, it's a little bit stressful getting over the bridge before they close it, and you're sort of sitting on the bus or on the ferry while the time's ticking away before your wave starts. But then, yeah, it's. I mean, we talk about the Melbourne running community and how we are so small. It you don't realize how small we are and how small our community is until you go to a major like that, and you see, for 42 Ks, there's people lining the streets 5 deep with signs. There's people having block parties. It's the whole city is involved from start to finish, and it's a real, it's almost like a public holiday, and that many people get around it that it's so amazing to be there and to be a part of it, and you get so much energy from those crowds. Obviously, with smaller marathons and smaller races, you might struggle for a bit of motivation at times throughout the race, because it can be a ghost town out there, during Melbourne Marathon and at different parts. But yeah, the energy you get from the crowds is it's pretty hard to emulate anywhere else.
Yeah, man, I can imagine. I saw. I'm trying to think of what it was called. Like City to Bay, I think was the race in Adelaide that I did, and I remember doing that one year back in about 2008, 2009, and they had a drummer set up along. I don't know if it's Anzac Highway, one of the roads out there, and he was the only
Mm.
bloke around for what felt like miles. And I was like, I love the concept, but I still don't feel inspired because there was one drum. But I think the footage that I saw of New York Marathon was, it looked like there was that kind of setup all the way through,
Yeah.
just wherever it was that you turned, there was noise and people and music, and yeah, it looked unbelievable. And I can imagine that YouTube does absolutely no justice to what it's like when you get there. So, what was your training like going into it? You said you didn't really prepare for it, right, or had no idea what you were doing. Like, what did you do
Yeah.
before you went and had a crack?
I think I was on the Nike the NRC app, so the Nike Running Club app, and there's a
Oh yeah,
function on there where they can, you can put in your goal race, and it sort of spits you out a generated plan. So I was sort of loosely following that, but I think you touched on it earlier about nutrition, and I don't even think I knew the words race nutrition at that point. Um, so there wasn't too much, fueling before or during or after, which definitely cost me, during some long runs and that sort of stuff. So I was following a plan loosely, but definitely not to the extent that I would these days, or anything like that. So um, yeah, definitely naivety played a big part in that one.
yeah. So you've gone reverse of most athletes. Like a lot of my friends from high school are no longer running, despite how obsessed they were with it back in sort of 2004, 2005. You came from sort of a no interest into. It sounds like you're pretty into it now.
Yeah, it's gone 0 to 100 pretty quickly. I think you can thank a couple of COVID years of getting really into it for that. And yeah, I'm sure my partner Phoebe would definitely agree that it can be all consuming at times. I think particularly when when you turn a hobby into a job as well.
Yeah, man. Okay, so yeah, you're right into it. So what are you training for at the moment? Actually, maybe a better way to get into this particular conversation is how many marathons have you done now?
Uh 5 now. Started 6, finished
Gee,
5.
okay. All right. And what's your fastest time?
It was a couple of weeks ago in London. It was 2:31 and about 40 seconds, I think.
Oh, wow, man. Oh, dude, I had no idea that I was talking to a real good marathon runner. See, that's unbelievable. That's a huge performance. So, 2:31 in London. I don't know. Yeah, London. I mean, it's renowned for it's had some pretty quick finishes. Actually, this year was pretty quick, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know what the
yeah.
winner
This year
ran,
was
but
very
it
quick.
was like the second fastest of all time. Or have I made that up? I'm confusing that
No,
with
no,
something else.
yeah, no, that's right. It was 2:01. I think it was 2:01:25. I could be wrong there. There's probably some gurus, stat gurus out there screaming at me for that.
So how long have you been training for then? Because 2:31 is really impressive, man. You'd be eyeing off that sub 2:30 in the next couple of races, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that was the plan for London, but I'll take the PB regardless. But yeah, it was sort of after New York, I did Melbourne and sort of probably was a little bit ambitious after New York and so I ran 3:30 in New York and then ran 3:31 the next year in Melbourne, um, which was tough with a few little spots walking and whatnot in there. And then what do we and then we went down to Hobart and did Hobart Marathon, and that was 2:47, and then um, did Melbourne again, and that was 2:35, and then Gold Coast last year I DNF'd, which was a bitter pill to swallow, but obviously needed some redemption at London, yeah, a few weeks ago. So
What happened in
progression
Gold
is
up on the Gold Coast?
it was probably a combination of things. I mean, it's flying in the day before probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. And I had a few sort of stomach issues pretty early on in the race, but yeah, it was struggling early, and it was sort of a long way home from there. So um, yeah, it's never ideal to not finish something you started, but yeah, it was just one of those days.
Yeah, yeah. So what have you got your eyes on now? So London was a few weeks ago, and then what's next on the calendar?
Hopefully Melbourne, like yourself,
Oh,
I'll
great.
sort of getting back into sessions this week and next. So I was sort of throwing a bunch of potential races at my coach the other day, and came to the realization that I probably just need to pump the brakes a bit and just see how the body feels getting back into some sessions before I dive headfirst into anything.
Yeah, who's coaching you, man?
Ellie Pashley.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, yeah. I know Ali. I know
Yeah,
Ali. I've followed her results for a few years now. Oh, so you're in some real good hands there.
yeah, yeah. Ellie's fantastic, and Ellie and Julian who have run strong and they do a great job. So very hands on and sometimes you feel like you're annoying the shit out of her. But yeah, she does a very good job, and she is very patient. That's for sure.
Man, next time you see Julian, tell him to check his Instagram message because I'm trying to get him on the show as well. And we're about as good as Instagram as each other. I think it's just been unread for both of us for about 6 months. But
I'll
we
let
got
him
to
know
we.
because we run cross country for Geelong. So I'll next cross country meet, I'll give him a nudge.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, let him know. That's good. Yeah, I'm out in Point Lonsdale. I heard because he's got his store out this way as well, doesn't he? Like he's running, looking after. I can't. What's the name of their store? The the run the.
The running
I'm
company.
blanking. The running company. That's right. Yeah, because I knew he
Yeah.
looked after that. I'd heard a couple of episodes of the Inside Running podcast, and I'd heard him speak about that. So, man, like, how are you structuring your week of training at the moment? Are you like in terms of how many sessions you're doing and long runs? Like, what does an average week look like for you?
At the moment, it's sort of a little bit skewed. We're just sort of building back up mileage again after um, pretty much 2 weeks of not much, which was good post London. But yeah, standard week, outside of a marathon block is sort of sort of sits around 130-ish Ks, and we'll have a
Jeez.
session on a Tuesday and a session on a Friday, and then long run Sunday.
Hmm.
Um, is usually the way we do it, and then yeah, it'll just be a bunch of mileage sprinkled in there throughout, and then when we get into a marathon block, it sort of shifts a little bit with a session on a longer session on a Thursday, and then a session um, that's sort of incorporated into our long run on a Sunday.
Sure. Yeah, like a few 2K efforts, or maybe a 30-minute threshold or something like that.
Yeah, we'll tend to do sort of a good chunk of the long run just jogging to start with, just to sort of get the legs tired, and then change shoes and get into, yeah, like a 3 by 5K or something, just to get the
Yeah, oh,
body
sure.
used to running sort of marathon pace on tired legs.
Yep. What shoes are you racing in?
Well, I was lucky enough that to for London, that New Balance, who are the major sponsor there, managed to get me an entry. So I ran in the new RC Elites from New Balance.
Yeah, okay. And how that, like, they obviously went pretty well. I mean, it's hard to criticize a shoe when you've just beaten your PB in them.
Yeah. No, they're a great shoe, and the guys there were good enough to sort me out with a couple of pairs through training and whatnot as well. So um, yeah, it was a really good shoe. I mean, that's probably the downside of having access to all of the racing shoes and all the shoes from all the brands, is that sometimes it can make for a pretty tough choice as to what to wear when and all that sort of stuff. But it's definitely a first world problem.
Yeah, for sure. Are you, like, during your training, are you practicing with your fueling? Because that's another thing that I've learnt through the conversations with Andy, is that, like, in terms of how many carbs you're able to handle through a marathon. I don't know if you've heard me speaking about it, but I ran my first marathon in 2018. It sounds like it was very similar to your New York approach. Like, went out thinking that the marathon was the easiest event in the world based on the first half, and then found out no, it
Yep.
had a reputation for being difficult for a reason. And man, I was climbing stairs that whole second half, just to say the least. And um, like, one of the areas that I'm really looking forward. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my calves at the moment. Just it's been a long time out of the sport, and like the intense sessions just didn't play that much of a role in my running week. So I'm just starting to introduce a little bit of that, but the legs are trying to find the right balance, because my aerobic tank's like, all right, we're ready to go. And then my legs are like,
Yep.
mate, I'm not 100% sure what you think we're doing this year. So I'm trying to find that sweet balance. But one of the things that I have enjoyed, up until a couple of weeks ago when I was doing my longer run, was just having a play with some of the sodium tablets the day before, the morning of, and for recovery. Like, I'm sure an element of it's placebo and my fitness improving, but Monday, a couple of weeks ago, like, I just done 20 Ks, and like, I finished that at, like, the average pace was 4:32, which for me at the time is pretty quick. But it was one of those runs where it felt fairly smooth doing it. But I thought, I'm going to
Yep.
pay for this so much in the morning. And I woke up, and I do think, like, surely hydration had some element in my recovery, because
Mm.
I'd been really slack up until that point with hydration. Like, I might have a couple of glasses of water and not really pay that much attention the day before. And I even took a gel out with me, just to get a little bit of a feel for that in the long run, because it's just, as I said, something I'd never really played
Mm.
with before. Are you doing a lot of practice with that kind of stuff, or do you feel like you have it down to a bit of a fine art now?
It's definitely not a fine art. I think the marathon's one of those things where you learn something every time, and you never 100% set on what's going to happen or what's going to work and what's not. So you definitely learn something from every time you go through a block and run the full distance. Sort of have definitely got a lot better over the years with fueling, and it's probably one of the biggest misconceptions when people get into distance running is under fueling, and just how much you need to eat to be able to maintain your energy in recovery and all that sort of stuff. I can probably still say unequivocally that I don't eat enough for the amount that I train. I desperately try to, but it's sort of not in my nature to be doing that. But yeah, we definitely practice through every long run. Will virtually be anything over 15 or 16 Ks. I'll be having a gel or two, just to help with, so you're not really bottoming out in those long runs, and even to the point where you might have a long run session, and the session might be 39 or 40 Ks all up, and you think having a gel at 38 K is a bit redundant, but you got to look at it from a point of recovery as well. If you're taking on those carbs late in the run, then you essentially look at it as refueling for after. So you have your gel, and you might have finished your long run 10 minutes later, but those carbs are going to help you recover as well. They're not strictly for during. Um,
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah,
mm,
that's something I hadn't even really thought of. Like I'd been in my 90-minute run, so that was that 20K run I was telling you about the other day. I had a gel at about 45. No, sorry, at about 30 minutes in, and that was just under the guidance of Andy. I thought, all right, I'll just sample it here. And as I said, like I'd never really had that much trouble with fatigue, especially at sort of 90 minutes. Once I started to
mm,
get out to about 2 hours or a bit after that, one of my worst or least favorite feelings is that feeling of like just being so hungry and drained and looking at your watch and being like, oh no, I've still got 40 minutes left. So
yeah.
I definitely danced around that with the 90-minute run. But um, in terms of just maintaining energy levels, I felt good for that one. Are you playing with sodium tablets and things like that as well? Like, has that got much of a part in your hydration?
I haven't played with it yet. I think that's been the good thing about precision is that sort of how you can the differing levels of sodium in the products, and how you can sort of personalize that to your needs. If you're a heavy sweater, or you're prone to cramping and different stuff like that. I've personally never had too many issues with cramping. I do like a bit of salt on my food, so I don't know if that if that plays into it at all or not. But yeah, I haven't experimented too much with sodium tablets. I tend to stick to the Morton gels, and they do a solid bar, which has been really good as like a pre-run fueling, because I don't like to eat too short, like before a run. Like to, if I'm
Sure.
gonna have
Yeah.
breakfast before I run, have something to eat, wait an hour or so before I get out. So that's been really good. Um, but yeah, just I think, like you said, it's just working out what your body can handle, because obviously everyone's different. Um, I've got a mate, Liam, that I train with, and he's got a loaf of bread on the floor of his car, which he'll munch on his way to the session, and
That's
and
not
that
Liam
works for
Adams, is
him.
it?
No, it's not Liam Adams.
I was going to say,
That
it
that
sounds like a very Liam Adams thing to do.
yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, and so it is very much personal preference as to how many carbs you can take on. I think that was probably part of the issue with Gold Coast last year, is I probably went a little bit heavy in the carb load in the days before, and probably didn't back off early enough. And I think I
Mhm.
probably suffered that with some stomach cramps and whatnot early in the race.
Yeah. What were you doing for your carb load?
We sort of work to 10 to 12 grams of carbs per kilo of body weight. Um,
Okay.
so, I mean, that can be, you can sort of make it up um, any number of ways. There's obviously some really good liquid carb drinks out there these days, which I found really beneficial as a good way to take on easy carbs without munching, volume of food. Um, so I think recently for London, I was probably a little bit more relaxed, and not being at home and not being able to control, every little detail, sort of forced me to back it off a little bit, and just, make use of what was available, and just make sure I was eating, you know, between meals, and each meal was a little bit bigger. Um, so it was good to not have such a strict approach, and I think it ultimately worked pretty well in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So with your trip to London, how long before your race did you get there? Because you were saying obviously with Gold Coast, even though that's a relatively short flight, I know the day before, I wouldn't have liked that either. Just
Mm,
even just the
no,
stress of hoping everything goes well and just trying to settle in. But I've
yeah.
had the experience of I flew to Canada back in 2010, actually with Liam Adams, and he'd been traveling around. I don't know if he was in the UK or where he was, but I ended up meeting him in Canada, and he had already pretty much adjusted to the flights. Like we were going out for runs
Mm.
together, and he was faster than me, but he was already still just tearing me up in a couple of sessions that we did together.
Yeah.
Whereas myself, like that long flight, I couldn't believe how much I just felt like I got smacked for
Mm.
probably 4 or 5 days. And looking back, I was like, all right, if I had my chance again, I would like probably like a week and a half to really get over
Yeah.
there and just settle in and find my legs and get into a bit of a rhythm before the race. But how did
Yeah.
you manage that?
So we got in on the Wednesday night before a Sunday race, which was a pretty good amount of time. I think anything less than that, and it might have been pushing it. I think the very next day, so on the Thursday when I got out for a run, I was feeling pretty sluggish legs and breathing, and I get very congested from the plane, and your breathing doesn't feel right, and nothing sort of is going your way. But then each day following that was a massive improvement, which was good. I mean, it would be fantastic to be an elite athlete and head over there 10 days before you have to race and get fully acclimatized and all that, but unfortunately, us amateurs don't really have the annual leave to burn and the time to be, because I like pre-marathon, like you're not doing anything in wherever you're traveling anyway. So you could be in London, but you're spending 10 days sitting on the couch going for a jog, and that's about it. So it seems like a little bit of a waste of your time in a big city.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true, man. Oh, that's good, dude. I'm excited for you. How old are you?
30.
30. Okay. Oh, that's good news. It's nice
Yeah.
to look at a bloke like Eliud Kipchoge breaking world records at 37 or 36 or whatever he is as well, because you know
Yeah.
that the horizon. Actually, Sinead Diver, she's probably even more inspirational. I think I added a couple of years to her actual age, but I don't know if you know off the top of your head, she must be 44 or 45, is she, when she broke the Aussie record?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think so.
she's definitely
Yeah.
mid 40s. So I look at that and I go, all right, well, we've still got a couple of years. I'm 36. So I've got a couple of years
Yeah.
less than you, but the idea of getting back involved is certainly more inspirational or motivating, knowing that there's some people, with a decade on you still running pretty fast times.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where marathoning is cool, because it is, that prime time it's not the same for everyone, and it is shifted to like a little bit later in life, and it's yeah, it's good. I mean, hopefully I've still got a few more good years left in me.
Yeah, man. Have you got your eyes on any big time? Like, is there a target of like you'd love to run 220, or have you got any sort of horizons or big landmarks other than 230 set for yourself?
Not really. I mean, I think everyone likes to dream and think of what could be, but if I'm being 100% honest, like a year or 2 years ago, 230 would have seemed like an absolute pipe dream. So, um, yeah, I don't think anything's possible if you're willing to work for it and put your head down. But if I can keep progressing the way I have been over the last couple of years, then who knows what's on the horizon. But I think I'll look for that sub 230 first, and then work out what's from there.
Sure. Yeah, it's a smart way to do it. No, awesome, man. Well, dude, once I finally get these calves figured out, I'm a Geelong boy, so I might have to
Yep.
rock a Geelong singlet and try and come down to one of these cross country races with you and have a run around. It'd be good to represent, but I got a lot of work to do before it gets to that. I would be in D grade and probably still in a middle leg somewhere, just so I don't embarrass the team too much. But mate, great to chat to you. I got way more than I bargained for. I was looking forward just to hearing a bit about up their athletics. But once you started talking about the fact you're a 230 marathon man, that got me excited. So, and it's such a point of fascination for me at the moment. Obviously, going into what feels like my first proper marathon preparation to just pick
Yep.
the brains of a bloke like you and hear about how it's all going. So, my goal at the moment is if I can get the body right, I'd love to try and have a crack at that 240 mark. But I mean, I feel like they're real big words at the moment because yeah, at the moment, just gone for a 40-minute jog with my calves intact seems to be the goal.
Yeah, I mean, 240 is massive in its own right. I remember someone a little while ago was telling me like what the global average is for a marathon finisher, and it's I think it's over 4 hours or something. So
Gee,
240 is still in the whatever top percentile it is. It's still moving for 42 k's.
Dude, I should stop saying it. I should stop telling people now because if I run 2:59, I would still be stoked.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
I just got to get out. I just thought 2 filling was a more appealing headline, so I just went with it. Now I'm going to pay for it dearly.
yeah. No, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Anyway, man, dude, I'll let you go, but man, really appreciate you stopping by and having a chat. And seriously, if you're interested, I'll shoot you a message as the body starts to get into a bit more shape. Are you? But you're based in Melbourne, are you?
Yep, yeah, correct.
Yeah, awesome. Well, if I'm ever down there having a run around the tent or something, I'll shoot you a text and see if we can line something up.
Absolutely, man. Love to.
All right, brother. Hey, thanks for stopping by, man.
No worries. Appreciate it.
See you later. See you, everybody.